Say, what type of dog is this? Maybe he's a werewolf. A werewolf? Ah! 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 You're not letting me sit next to a werewolf. Hey, calm down, everybody. He's not a werewolf. He's a weasel. He's harmless. Well, he's not harmless. He's killed 27 people, but he's not a werewolf. Oh, that's okay then. Wait. Ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my review of The Suicide Squad, the 10th film released in the DC universe. Not DC Expanded Universe, but it's the 10th film in this shared universe the DC Comics film division wanted to do after Marvel's success with their one, starting with Man of Steel in 2013. This is the 10th film. The 9th one was Wonder Woman 1984, which I might review on this channel at a later date, even though I didn't see it at the cinema, but I do have the Blu-ray. So I might do it on this channel because it was a 2020 film. So I'm going to make some exceptions for 2020 films because of the pandemic, and the same for 2021. If I didn't see it at the cinema, they could still go on this channel instead of the Retro channel. Man of Steel might also go on this channel at a later point as well to complete the series. But that's potential futures. As for the present, The Suicide Squad. It's also a sequel/soft reboot to the 2016 Suicide Squad film, written and directed by David Ayer, and the third installment of the DC film series. DC Shared Universe series. By the way, Joker does not count as one of these films. It's separate standalone. This film is directed by James Gunn, and DC hired him to make this film after his initial firing from Marvel, following some certain tweets that had come from several years earlier that came back round. So Marvel and Disney decided to let him go from Guardians 3. So DC and Warner Brothers picked him up for this film, and then after about a year later, Disney and Marvel rehired him for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which will now come out in 2023. In the meantime, we have The Suicide Squad. So the plot of The Suicide Squad sees Amanda Wallace send a bit of a bigger team this time round from the first film. The first team had a good number, I think, a good number of team members. That's the number, not necessarily the people in themselves. I mean, like as a team, as a group, as a unit, there's a good number in there. This time round, it's twice as big, I think, and they split into two teams, so a smaller team and a larger team. The larger team is sent in as a distraction to draw enemy fire from a dictatorship, not government, a dictatorship-led country, which had previously overrun a monarchy dictatorship. The monarchy dictatorship didn't really have much of an issue with America, but the military dictatorship does, and they have weapons that they have a scientific project called Project Starfish, which the previous regime had as well, as a potential weapon that could be used against America and other countries in the world. And it's being developed by the Thinkerer, played by the fantastic Peter Capaldi, and that means Amanda Wallace has decided to send in the Suicide Squad to deal with this threat, and the larger team is sent in as a distraction on the beach. One of the members betrays the group to the initial nation and gets killed for it, not by his own team, or Waller, but by the people he sold the Suicide Squad out to, and pretty much all members of the large team die apart from Rick Flag, who is also back in this film after appearing in the first film and played by the same actor, Joe Kinnaman, and Margot Robbie returning as Harley Quinn. This being her third film following the first Suicide Squad, and Birds of Prey and the fabulous impersonation of Harley Quinn. I just don't know why they're just going to call it Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey. Speaking of which, this film doesn't really have much tie into that film either, apart from Harley is now back on the Suicide Squad. She's been recaptured back here. She's back in prison and she's part of the Suicide Squad again. No mention of what happened to Cassandra Cain and no reference to the Birds of Prey film. But then again, at the end of this film, she is free again. So maybe there'll be a sequel to Birds of Prey later down the line? I don't know. This film does leave open a potential third sequel for Suicide Squad. So there's always that as well. Anyway, so Rick Flag and Harley are captured. Rick by the rebellion, who are rebelling, the rebels against the regime, whilst Harley is captured by the regime themselves. Meanwhile, the second team, led by Idris Elba's character, Bloodshot, and he's technically the character we follow the most throughout this film, even though Margot Robbie, who plays Harley Quinn, is credited first. She's the main star. We follow mostly Bloodshot, Robert Duvall, played by Idris Elba, a bit more. So he's technically the main character, and he's joined by King Shark, played by Sylvester Stallone, and John Cena's Peacemaker, as well as two other less well-known. Actually, to be honest, I don't know how well-known Duvall, Bloodshot, and Peacemaker are, but they're the most notable ones in this film, alongside King Shark, who is a bit more recognisable because of the recent Harley Quinn TV series. And they're also joined by two other characters who aren't so well-known either. Ratcatcher 2, and who also has a rat companion, and Polka Dot Man, who must have been a character from either the 1960s Batman TV show or from around that time, because he's such a silly... It's a silly concept. They have a pretty good backstory that they added to him later on in the film. They gave him a bit more depth and a bit more of a reasons about why he's got these powers, etc. Whilst Ratcatcher 2 definitely has some emotional moments, especially with Bloodshot, and they have a good chemistry and rapport with each other. And I think this team works pretty well with each other, and as well as also with Rick and Harley later on when they join up with them, and also the Rebels when they also team up with them. So the mission the team have, or at least the team that's left anyway, the members of the team that's left, have to try and infiltrate this scientific laboratory and destroy Project Starfish, as well as also rescue the captured members of the team, and have to try and help the rebels overthrow the dictatorship regime and allow the country to be free again. And yeah, it sounds simple, but there's quite a bit in this film. Although luckily it doesn't throw everything all at once, but there is quite a bit of that goes on, and at 2 hours and 12 minutes, I think it is paced pretty well. Although I do think the stuff with the giant starfish itself, which sounds silly, but it makes sense in the story. I do think maybe the starfish deciding to stay on Earth and try and control the town, the city, etc., might have been a climax too far. But then again, maybe they needed something a bit more emotional climax, and not just a big. They didn't just want big action for the sake of it. They wanted something to show the teamwork of the characters, I guess, maybe. Because otherwise the climax would be blowing up the building or something. And whilst that would be a good action climax, this one does sort of work on a more emotional and character-driven one. But it does feel like it is adding on an extra climax because of that. At least that's what I think. I don't mind it. I actually thought it was a pretty good climax. It's certainly better than the 2016 Suicide Squad's climax, but I thought it was maybe one climax too many. It is pretty good though. I enjoyed also Harley's side story where she got captured and she hanged out with the president of the regime, then killed him because she didn't like the idea of killing children. Was then captured by the military, and the general, the head general, then took over as the president. And Harley was being tortured. Then she faked supposedly dying and then escaped, only to then discover that the other members of the team were going to help, were going to rescue her, and then just turned up and was like, "Oh, hi guys." That was great. I also really enjoyed the bit where the team has to infiltrate a bar to capture the Tinkerer, and the dictatorship regime has discovered that they're in the city somewhere. They're looking for them, so half the team have to give themselves up in order to let the other half escape with the Tinkerer. And I thought that was a pretty good. That was pretty well done, especially as the characters that were captured are able to overcome their captures, not too easily or quickly, but easing quick enough to allow the other characters to escape and then come back to get them afterwards. So that was done really well. I liked that. And also the Resistance characters. Whilst there isn't a huge amount known about the Resistance characters, it was fun to see some of them around. It was quite funny having this guy called Milton sticking around, although I did think the joke about Harley not remembering his name, and just after the character was killed, and there's this bit about who was Milton? That guy was Milton. That bit was probably a joke that went too far. Not too far, but I think that was one joke too many. I don't think we needed it. I don't think even the character was even that. I liked the character, but I didn't think he was too important to warrant that much of back and forth joke. Nor do I think his death would be that emotionally challenging to many audience members, unless people really resonated with Milton, the bus driver. The cast and characters of this film are really great, especially like the main team characters we get throughout the film. It is a bit of a shame that there's quite a few characters at the start are just killed off. It's a bit like X-Force in Deadpool 2. You get all these in that film, you get all these great mutants, and they say what they can do, what they could offer to the team, and everyone apart from Deadpool and Domino die. Although Deadpool does go back and make sure, what was his name? I can't remember. But the one guy who didn't have any powers, but just turned up to contribute to the team anyway. Deadpool nicknamed him Sugar Bear. But yeah, Deadpool traveled back in time to make sure he didn't die. So maybe two, then later 3 members of the team survived, but quite a few other team members were killed in hilarious death scenes, but they didn't really have much time to shine. And the same could be said for this film. There's quite a few characters who die just for the sake of it. Heck, we open on a character who is sent on the mission, played by Michael Rooker, who was Yondu in the Guardians of the Galaxy films. And then he tries to run away because he's scared, so he gets killed by water. So his character was wasted. The Weasel character, also played by Sean Gunn, also an actor from Guardians of the Galaxy and also other Marvel films, because he was the body for Rocket, the on-set person for Rocket. He gets there's some interesting stuff with him, and he gets some good moments, and then he dies, he drowns, or does he? Because there's one of the 2 post-credit scenes imply otherwise, and the other one also implies a main character who supposedly died is still alive as well. And then quite a few of the other characters, also a couple of other characters die as well. One of them including Captain Boomerang, who was in the first film, and also another character who asks Harley to take his javelin, and she uses that as a weapon throughout part of the film, which is pretty cool, especially as it's including Harley Quinn being a bit acrobatic and aerobic, which is part of her character. It's including some of that into her character and using the javelin as part of that. But I think quite a few characters were maybe killed off too soon at the start, but we do get a couple of interesting ones throughout later on in the movie, and there is still a bit of a body count later on in the film as well. They keep this lot of characters alive for quite a while, and heck, you need to do that. You need to keep half the characters alive after you killed the other half in the first couple scenes. In fact, the promotion implies a much larger team to what we see throughout the majority of the film, but most of those characters are the ones who get killed off in the first act, with only a few passing in to later on in the film. But the main characters we get throughout the film are really great. Bloodshot's a great character. Like Deadshot in the first film, he has a sort of a relationship with his daughter, but this one's a bit more it's a bit more of a problematic relationship. It's not quite as because Deadshot and his daughter had a much more closer bond in the first film. This time around, they don't have as much of a closer bond. They actually have a big argument at one point, but later on, Bloodshot wants to make sure things are okay for his daughter. Um, he wants to protect her from going to prison after she steals a watch, and he's trying to make sure he's doing this mission in order to prevent her from going to the prison he's in, which is a bit of a dangerous one, and also the fact that it's the place where the Suicide Squad are based from. It is a bit disappointing that not as many female characters are part of the squad. We only really get 3 main female characters besides Warner, who are part of the Suicide Squad. Heck, and Warner's not even part of the squad. She's in the communications. We only get 3 female Suicide Squad members, and one of whom dies at the start. But I really enjoyed Ratcatcher too. She was a pretty fun character. Liked her quite a lot. She might be one of my favourite characters from this film, if not my favourite. I also think this is Margot Robbie's best performance as Harley Quinn so far. I thought she was really great in this film. And also Idris Elba is great as Bloodshot. He's brilliant. And Viola Davis as Amanda Warner. Joe Kinnaman as Rick Flag, who looks a bit different to how he does in the first film. In the first film, he looks more militaristic and stuff. A bit more like John Connor from Terminator Salvation. Whilst this film allows him to look more like how the actor usually looks. And I did think he might have been a different character altogether before I heard, oh, actually, it's Rick Flag. Okay, maybe they got another actor in. No, it's the same actor. He just looks a bit different, that's all. And I think this is his better performance as well. He's not as shouty as he is in the first one. He's not barking as many orders. He's a bit He's a bit less hard on the characters. He's a bit more friendly with them. There's no mention of his relationship with Dr. Jean Moore, who played Enchantress in the first film. So I don't know what's happened to her, and similarly, I don't know what happened to the other characters from the first film who survived. I don't know, maybe they died on later missions or something. Or, well, with the possible exception of Katana, who is kind of just there to help out, and maybe she's gone off doing something else whilst this is happening. Possibly, or maybe she did die when helping out on another mission. But certainly Killer Croc and Deadshot probably are dead. Possibly, and I don't know about Dr. Jean Moore. Maybe she just doesn't have any more involvement with this anymore because she's no longer Enchantress. Oh, she's going to have a broken heart then, following the events of this film. But no spoilers there. And also, John Cena's really fun as Peacemaker. He's a pretty fun character. Sylvester Stallone, though, does steal the show as King Shark, who he's really funny and a really great character in this. The villains I didn't think were that particularly strong. They're just a dictatorship government. I say government, a dictatorship basically. The first president was quite fun guy outside of his dictatorship stuff, and then his general's a bit more stern, strict, and destructive. Peter Capaldi as the Thinker, though, he was really great in this, and the Thinker was a pretty good character for what he had involved. And we've also got this starfish creature that they're experimenting with. I actually really like the idea of the little starfish creatures coming out of it and then lashing on to people's faces, a bit like face huggers I've seen in the Alien films. And it just attached itself to people, and it was part of the creature itself. Quite an interesting idea, and also there's a bit of political commentary about the American government's being part of this secret scientific research / experimental program, but not wanting it on American soil, so they moved it to this island nation and made agreements with an older government or something, and this whole cover up and stuff. There's some good commentary on that, and there's some great stuff in that, and I think that's really well in the handled really well in the story. The action is also really greatly done. There's also some great editing. I also like that it's more of a more set in the daytime most of the time in this film, with a few night scenes. The first film was mostly set on one night for the majority of its plot, and it was very dark, and there was some dirty looking CGI. Whilst this film is a much more brighter, it has a lighter color palette that's very more visible about what's going on, and there's a lot more humor in this one. It's a bit funnier than the first one. That one did have its moments of laugh, but it was a more serious installment. This one definitely has a lot more comedy going for it, and I think it helps that James Gunn had a big say in what was going on in the story, because he's able to help inject some more like humor into the story, like he did in the Guardians of the Galaxy films, um, whilst also allowing himself to go a little bit more adult, as it's a more violent film than the first one. There's a lot more bad language as well, and yeah, James Gunn's is given um, the go ahead to go not quite all out, but definitely not hold back on the violence and the language, etc. It's to be an R-rated film in North America, I think, at least, and a 15 over here in the UK. And unlike the first Suicide Squad film, I think this film earns the 15 age rating. I think the original Suicide Squad could have passed at 12A, or at the very least 12, but it got a 15, and I think it could have been a 12, to be honest. Harley Quinn's also a 15, and I think that one's given the go ahead to be a 15. Not sure about the Zack Snyder's Justice League cut, because I haven't seen that one yet. But I think he was also allowed to go a little bit further and make an R-rated cut of the film, which is a 15 over here. But yeah, I think this film definitely earns that 15 age rating more than the first film, because the first film, I think, it wasn't quite violent enough to get the 15. I think it could have been fine as a 12. This one earns the 15 age rating because there's quite a bit of violence. It's done both humorously and also in pretty cool action stuff, and as mentioned, there's also quite a lot of strong language. But it just ties in nicely with the comedy and the characters, and the story works pretty well as having more comedic edges in this time round. It's a lot more fun and a lot more enjoyable and a bit more engaging. Alongside the characters we get in this film, it's just a more engaging film overall to the original installment. I think that's something DC have been learning since Wonder Woman, the original Wonder Woman film from 2017, the original in this extended universe, is that they have to lighten up a little bit. Not necessarily go full out comedy like Shazam, for instance, but maybe not be as bleak as Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice. They can lighten the mood a little bit, and this film definitely allows itself to be a bit more fun and enjoyable, but still be a great action-packed adventure that takes these would-be villains or anti-heroes or anti-villains and places them in this situation to become superheroes or heroes, and to fight off this dictatorship regime and this alien experiment they have being experimented on. I thought it was a pretty great story. Overall, I think this film, whilst it has a few minor issues and some more noticeable than others, I think it is it's a pretty strong film overall. I was thinking of giving it a 10 out of 10, but going over some of the more issues, both objectively and subjectively, I think I might have to go with the 9 out of 10 score I was kind of initially considering. So I think it is definitely one of the best of the DC expanded universe films, along with Wonder Woman 2017 and with Shazam. So I think it's definitely top 3 of the extended universe films. So I will give the Suicide Squad a 9 out of 10. It's a really great film. It's one of my favourites from the DC universe so far, along with Wonder Woman and Shazam. Definitely top 3 material, possibly maybe even my new favourites. But Wonder Woman 2017, I think, is objectively the best. But personal favourite between that and this, although Shazam would be within the top 3 as well. And it's definitely better than the first film. I initially did give that one an 8 out of 10 when I first saw it, but now I'd probably maybe lower it down to maybe 7, 6. Depends how I feel on a rewatch. So maybe I'll re-review it at a later date. Same with Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, because the same thing happened with that one. But yeah, I thought this one was a pretty strong film and really enjoyable. Go and check it out if you haven't. At time of recording, I don't think North America has got it yet. I think they get it on August the 6th, whilst here in the UK we got it on July the 30th, 2021. So yeah, if you haven't seen it yet and it's out, do go and check it out. Same if you want to watch it on HBO Max, because it's also going to be showing on HBO Max in North America from August the 6th. But I do recommend trying to go to the cinema if you can, just with the correct protection, like masks or visors, take some gel, sit a bit of distance away from someone who's not part of your bubble or friends group or whatever. Just take precautions, etc. But if you can get to go and see it at the cinema, go and do it. It supports cinemas, and to be honest, it's a film that deserves to be seen on the big screen. It's a great film, and it definitely looks brilliant on the big screen. So yeah, I highly recommend checking this film out, especially at the cinema. If you can't make it to the cinema for whatever reason, it might not just be because of coronavirus. It might be just you don't have the time, or maybe you don't have as much money, but you have got a subscription to HBO Max. Then go and check that out. Go and check it out when it comes out. Not sure if it's on HBO Max in other countries outside of the USA, but maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe it'll come later. It will definitely come on DVD and Blu-ray and 4K later down the line as well. So maybe you can pick it up then, and digital. So that's it from my review of The Suicide Squad, or Suicide Squad 2. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the Nicholas Payne YouTube channel. This film was also made by, and Disney decided to let him go from Guardians 3, so DC. So yeah, the Monarchy did this being her third film in following Suicide Squad and Harley Quinn and Birds of Prey and the Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. Following Suicide Squad. Who is more notable for appearing in the Harley Quinn TV series that's been was around. Although I do think the climax does it does kind of It's still really good though. We also have. It's still really good though. Yeah, it's still really good though. I also, I guess, that but yeah, that Deadpool made sure he didn't die. He was also a Guardians of the Galaxy performer, just like in the first film. And heck, to be honest, well, you need to do that after killing off about half the team in the opening scene, or first or second opening scene. But I really didn't. I think definitely by now, definitely with 3 films under the belt, definitely, yeah. And there's also the pretense of it being it's much more light. There's lights, but from what I've heard, yeah, he was also allowed to go a bit more, to not hold back. So, but yeah, it's and quite a bit of bloody violence. It's also done in humor as but it just works really well with, but maybe not be as bleak as Batman and Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Um, um, so I think I shall be settling on a 9 out of 10 for this film, or Suicide Squad 2.